he knew my history with cameras and how I'd been abused by them my whole life. And so to put one to my face really was not something I was anticipating. But we went through 23 states in 150 days, and I fell in love with having a camera to my face.
You initially reached out to me by email, and I knew immediately that this is a story that needed to be told. So let's go right back to the very beginning and start with your childhood. Tell me about your life growing up.
My life growing up was not ideal. My mother was a prostitute, my father was a biker, and so I was taught that the only value I had was between my legs, and the rest was just extra. And so that led me very early into addictions, and there was a lot of trauma, a lot of neglect. My mother was not the nicest human being. She suffered from mental health issues and from pain med addiction. And so she was in and out of the psychiatric wards a lot when I was a child, and I was left basically to fend for myself against the men in my home.
And so that was when you were how old?
I mean, I say that I've been an adult since I fell out of the womb, really. I was one of 10 children. Only 2 of us survived, me and my older brother. He was 3 years older than me. And he was not very kind to me either. At the age of 14, our father had started sexually assaulting him. I didn't know this at the time, but the sexual assault had started with my brother, and then the threat was, well, if you don't let me do that to you, then I'm going to take it from your sister. And so he sacrificed himself to keep me safe.
Wow. Are you and your brother close now?
He killed himself in 2009. And we were not close. He was an addict, mental health issues, not a good human being. He suffered through a lot like I did, but where I had Mother Nature to nurture me, he had drugs and a lot of anger. And I chose a different path. I chose, to spend my time outside to escape, looking at ants and bugs and the trees and, being caressed by the wind. And Mother Nature is the only mother I've ever had. It's what kept me sane. It's the only support I had.
And what path did that lead you on?
One of my favorite things to say is that my parents gave me all of the tools to lead me on a path of destruction. I became an addict. I started smoking, drinking, and doing drugs at the age of 10. And it just escalated. And I drank as an alcoholic up until the age of almost 40 years old. So one thing I haven't mentioned is from a very young age, I was actually brutalized by a camera. My father started taking inappropriate pictures of me at a very young age, which I thought were normal. I didn't realize at the time that it was child pornography. Until I was 19 and I was in a bar. I was working as a coat check girl in a bar because I could get free drinks. And I was in the bathroom or I was standing at the bar, and a guy had walked up to me and he said, "Oh, I really like your work." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, I said, "I work here in the coat check, like that's my work." He goes, "No." He goes, "Your work is a model." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, your photographer comes in all the time with your pictures, and I'm the one who develops them." He was getting them developed them at a superstore. Me, as a young child and a young woman in like very little clothing, taking them to superstore, and the attendant just happened to see me in a club that night.
Wow.
And he wanted my attention because he'd seen the goods. He wanted the package. Oh. So I said, he's like, your photographer looks kind of skeevy though. I was like, "That's not my photographer, that's my dad." He was like, and the look on his face, it was the first time in my life that I realized that the pictures that he had been taking of me my whole life were disgusting. They weren't loving family shots of me sitting, they were me, lick your lips, honey, pout them out, put your ass out, show your assets, right? In very little clothing. So it was the first time that it ever hit me in the face that hard that what was going on was wrong my whole life. And so I ran into the bathroom, and I slammed into the stall, and he ran in after me, and he said, I've seen yours, let me show you mine. And he tried to sexually assault me. Well, by this time I was a really angry young woman. And so I basically started beating the shit out of him to get him off of me, because I was not going to get sexually assaulted again. It was not going to happen. Not again. So one of the bouncers at the bar had kind of rescued me, because I went out and got him out of the bar or whatever. But he had said to me, he said, I'm going on a trip. I know you don't know me, I'm new here, but I'm going on a trip and I need to help you. He's like, I'm leaving in 6 months. The only stipulation I have is you have to be sober, because I will not travel with someone who's intoxicated. So on September 1st, 1988, we jumped on his FJ 1200 Yamaha motorcycle with no agenda, very little money, no path, just go. I was sober. It was the first time in a decade at 20 years old that I was sober.
Wow. So your photography now, tell us about that.
So that's what happened, is we get far enough away that I'm too far away from home that I can't leave. And he says, oh, by the way, I just need you to know that I promised my parents I would take photographs. And so you have to take the pictures because I'm going to be driving. And I said, I am not touching that thing. He knew my history with cameras and how I'd been abused by them my whole life. And so to put one to my face really was not something I was anticipating. But we went through 23 states in 150 days, and I fell in love with having a camera to my face. And that was in 1988, and it's now 2019, and now I am finally, at the age of 51, following my passions and sharing my God-given gifts with the world that Mother Nature is providing us with. For me to collect my 1 second in time and to be able to allow people to own a little piece of nature and share that with the world, to me is a beautiful gift.
And you are also a published author.
Yes, I think that was my breaking point in putting the exclamation point at the end of my self-love. And so yeah, just sharing these stories has given me the voice that I never had. And I'm hoping that by sharing my story, it will also give other women and men the voice to stand up and say, you know what, I deserve to be heard as well, and break that silence. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh my God.